Welcome. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. It's
Yeah.
always
Good
a pleasure.
morning. Yes. Good morning to everyone. Happy Sunday. Um, yeah, I selfishly really wanted to do this IG live because I feel like I'm going through so much right now during this time around body image and the voices in our heads and the ways we've been programmed. And I've always I think when I write or when I do a live like this, by the way, this is my first live, everyone. I'm so excited about that. Yay. Um, when I kind of let how I'm feeling in the moment guide me into what I'm talking about, because I feel like I know we're all so intertwined and interconnected that I know I'm not the only one that's feeling this moment in time.
100%.
So it kind of came out of a bit of a lovingly selfish need, but also I know that there's so many out there that are needing this right now. So first off, how are you handling this, all of this going on? How are you feeling?
Yeah, you know what? And I'm no different, even though this is subject matter that I talk about in my work. Um, we are in a petri dish of a lot of feelings and a lot of emotions, each individual and changing all the time. Currently, I'm doing really well.
Good.
I feel exceptionally grounded. But again, that changes moment to moment.
Mm.
And I think it is important to highlight that those thoughts that you mentioned at the beginning, like they just do turn up volume in our minds when we're left with no distractions and the
Right.
distractions of life. And so here we are without all of that, and they're gonna make their mark, right?
I mean, I know body image is something that, for me personally, I've had to deal with being in the business that I'm in. You grew up, right, as a prima ballerina,
Yeah,
from
yeah.
the time you were incredibly young. So definitely something you had to deal with also.
Mhm.
But it's not just the businesses we're in, it's everyone. I mean, we're permeated daily, especially as women, but even so as men,
Yeah,
with this specific body image and this idea of what we are supposed to look like.
yeah.
And now here we are, like you said, with no distraction from that. And a lot of us are eating differently, eating and drinking more than we normally do, whether
Mhm.
that's a great coping mechanism or not. It's just the reality.
Yeah.
For me, I know I've actually been allowing myself, we can kind of get in this allowing, yes, allowing myself
But
to eat things that I wouldn't normally eat. And I was talking to a friend the other day, our friend Kylie, and I was saying I'm eating the rice. I'm eating the rice and the pasta, and I wouldn't normally eat the rice and the pasta. But for some reason, I'm going back into foods that are comforting to me and kind of letting. I can't completely let it go just yet because there's all of those voices that come in and try to control what I'm eating, and I shouldn't be doing that, the shoulds and shouldn'ts.
yeah.
But I'm definitely allowing myself to have a bit more comfort, and I can see my body change a bit from day to day.
Mhm.
And I know that I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that can relate to that of, um, how do we allow more instead of control? And food is just one place where that shows up in all of our lives. I
Totally.
think this is a bigger overall kind of thought, but when it specifically comes to food and in this moment in time and allowing ourselves more comfort, what are your thoughts on that piece?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many directions we can head with that. So you use the example, first of all, of eating something like carbohydrates or rice or pasta. And I think there's an emotional component to that. And I don't want to pathologize that or
Hmm.
make that wrong. I think there's also like this groundedness, like eating some of those foods not only brings us emotional comfort, but maybe physical as well, where we need to actually have 2 feet planted on the earth in order to find our true north and our center. And then the other part of it is that can we allow, and we talked about this a little bit, this idea of grace or this permission, because again, when we when we use food for comfort, currently we kind of view this as a strategy that may not be so good. Well, I'm just emotionally eating. And what I always love to remind people of is that we can't take emotion out of eating, and we actually shouldn't, right? There are times in our lives where that is absolutely necessary to do, when we're at the celebration, whether it's Christmas, whatever it may be. Emotion and food go hand in hand. But when we talk about the negative side of it, it's like we're not allowed to. So again, like as soon as we step into discomfort, it's like, oh, that's not actually even an option. And so, one of the thoughts I have around maybe reframing some of that is Tara Brach, the meditation guru. She often talks about this idea of a yes for now, and I really love this idea of like a permission, if only for this moment, right? Because some of this may take longer to weed through and to sort out in our challenging brains, right? But in this moment, we can make a decision. And so even just saying a yes for now may actually give us enough of an opportunity or permission to do the thing that our body is asking us to do. And I think what it's asking us to do is trust it.
Yes. Oh, that trust piece. We've gotten so far away from trust. I have it tattooed actually on my arm. And it's for me, and I know for so many people, it's one of the most challenging things. And gosh, I've always looked outward and I think I don't trust that person, or I don't trust the situation. And what we're really saying is I don't trust myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, coming back into our moment to moment intuition. Like when I hear you say just for now, my brain goes to, well, what if that now turns into forever? And like, what if I all of a sudden let myself spin out of control and I can't control it anymore? I think there's probably a lot of people that relate to that thought process.
Absolutely.
So when that thought process comes into play, for instance, in that moment of, thinking, okay, a yes for now. And then we have this whole thought process of, oh, I can't control things, I can't control myself. I don't trust myself in that situation. How do you deal with that polarity in that moment?
Yeah, I think there's a few ways we can go about this. I mean, one of them very, very cognitively is, can we remind ourselves that our bodies want to trust us too, right? So that's an interesting reframe. So it's not just that that this sort of emotional controlling piece of our nature is trying to do something, but our body actually is doing remarkable things for us right now. It's trying to fight a virus, and now we're reducing it to only this. And so I think re-examining our value system, saying, okay, a yes for now actually looks like, well, what is the big deal? Can we allow ourselves that permission for whatever that might look like, knowing that our bodies aren't just reduced to a number or a shape. At the end of this all, we are fighting a pandemic. Holy crap. Can we appreciate our bodies for just a second? Right?
They're also, I mean, it's also made for pleasure. That's the thing. You're talking about emotional eating for food. And like you said, that has been there's such a negative connotation around that. But I love food. I really love food.
Good.
And yeah, and I could give away pretty much everything in my life, except I want healthy, good, solid food. And I'm so grateful. Like during this pandemic, it's the one thing I know so many people don't have. And it's really made me focus on how grateful I am just for nutrition. And I think that's also how I've been able to kind of grant myself a little more grace. Yeah, get over that a bit. Like I said, even though the voices are there, it's like, gosh, that gratitude just for food in general really does kind of reframe that and give a new perspective, shine a new light on food.
Yeah. Gratitude is remarkable. And I think what I'm hearing there is actually like a shift from just the judgment into kindness. And I think one of the things that we often forget is that we can't hate our bodies into loving them,
Right.
right? So we may go down that spiral of all of this pain that could eventually happen.
Hmm.
But where does that actually take us? To a more painful place?
Hmm.
What if we actually, again, used the permission or that grace to say, how can I actually be kind to my body? And maybe what I'm hearing is that having that access to food that is nutritious and enjoyable allows you to be able to access that kindness.
Hmm. Yeah, it really does put that into perspective. And like you were saying, we've reduced our bodies to just a number or what it looks like. And we do forget about the pleasure piece. We do forget about, the incredible things like, the cellular turnover, and that we're basically a new body every every
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
They're quite remarkable. But in our society, it's so focused on what people look like. And it's so easy to get caught in that spiral.
Mhm.
Especially when what we look like is part of our job.
Yeah,
And I think that's, for me, I feel like that's becoming less and less. I've come to this place in my life where now it's a overall bigger principle and understanding for me that I would like to apply all the time, but I can't yet,
mhm.
because I'm human and these thoughts still go on in my head. But you know, I've always joked about like walking out in sweats on stage because like, does it really matter? Like, does it really fucking matter what I have
Yeah.
on? Does it matter? That all that matters to me is that, I come out and I open my heart and it pours through my voice and that
Mhm.
it touches people.
Mhm.
And we've forgotten like what exists within that is so much more powerful than anything
Yeah.
that is out on the outside of us. This is just extra, and
That's
it's
just the package. That's the
yeah,
vessel that's,
yeah,
yeah, containing all
totally.
of that.
So it's so funny because I remember having that realization one day and kind of looking at all my clothing and like thinking about all the things that I do and to try to keep myself in a certain box, and it was realizing that I had so much more to offer than that, like really getting in touch with like what I had to offer on the inside.
Hmm.
And that takes a lot of guts to do that. It takes a lot of courage. And I know anybody even just exploring these topics, and really being honest with themselves about the dialogue that's going on in their head, around body image and just around their self-worth in general. And that's not a real general thing. That's like, to me, everything kind of like everything in my life I've noticed that feels off, I guess, it all boils back down to like ultimately self-worth.
Yeah.
Um, and gosh, when we focus so much on the external, we're missing the basis of it all. I mean, the beauty of who we are internally,
Yeah.
and spiritually. And so you know, I, I hope that, I hope that this time allows us, uh, a bit of freedom, like we're saying. I think what we're really getting to here is like a permission to be more free,
Yeah. Absolutely.
um, and to, uh, and to figure out where our baseline is, like personally, without the noise of the world.
Hmm.
And it's so easy to get lost I mean, we still can get lost in the noise of the world, very easily right now. But I hope people are taking that time. I mean, what are your practices right now to take? Like, what's one of your favorite things to do right now, just to take the time to go inward?
So meditation has always been something that has been extremely valuable in my well-being and through my recovery. Um, and I would say that if anything, it's just gotten stronger, which I think highlights the fact that as uncomfortable as this situation is, it does actually offer us a really unique opportunity to see things through a different lens. So maybe that is distancing ourselves from the comparative lens that is happening, or taking time to quiet or try new things or eat in ways that we don't socially do. It's all very interesting. But I would say for me, it's really about asking the questions, or directing the questions um, inside of myself as opposed to outside of myself, which is, I think, like the very nature of this virus that's going on. How can we look
Mhm.
inside of ourselves?
And you talk about comparison, which is, gosh, I mean,
Yeah, it's a
that's a
wormhole.
rough one, yeah, for so many of us. And um, with comparison, how do you how do you navigate those waters as
Mm.
a woman?
I think one of the first things that's really important to know is that comparison is a really natural part of our thinking. So, again, we have the tendency to criticize and judge ourselves, but every time we judge ourselves, we're actually punishing ourselves. So,
Mhm.
noticing first that it's just what happens, we compare ourselves to each other, right? Um, I think the important thing, or maybe one of the most important things, is to look at, again, how we can water our own grass, like acknowledge, like, I love that you brought up the word courage, because right now I think all of us, however we're behaving and handling things, we're going through this with courage, right? There is no other option. Being able to acknowledge and praise ourselves for the things that are going well and are going right is maybe the antidote to comparison. Whereas we see someone else doing something that we really admire and we don't see it as a threat to our existence, we see it as either inspiration or observation,
Mhm.
right? That but this is, again, themes that we have to revisit. It's like developing a new neural pathway that hasn't developed because all we've been told is compare yourself to this and this,
Mhm.
and that's all that it looks like.
Well, and also, it's that scarcity mindset that kind of comes into play there, where,
I agree.
there's just because she's doing well, there's not enough for me. Because she's beautiful, I'm not,
Yeah.
there's not enough beauty in the world that, I didn't get the fairy that went, ding, you're really pretty, like,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's not enough. There's that scarcity mindset that really comes into play. And I'm seeing so many, not only people right now, or now that we have a lot of time on our hands, um a lot of people are saying, talking about the side hustle, or like the thing they're going to learn when they come out of this, or like the body they're going to have. And I think it's really difficult not to hear those things and think of yourself as, oh, I'm lazy if I'm not working out 6 days a week and trying to, get a six pack. And I'm like, whatever we may be telling ourselves in those in that space, it's really, I think it's even more like, it's even louder at this moment in time,
Yeah,
because
I
here
agree.
we are sitting around with a bunch of time. Um, and I think that's pretty hysterical, especially for people who have kids and are are really have their hands full, even more full than they would, without their children at home right now. So it just looks different for everyone. It
It
really
does.
does.
It does. And, I feel like the first couple weeks, I started to notice some noise around exercise specifically because I think that's been the most accessible online um, engagement.
Hmm.
Um, and and I felt like this was coming up a lot for myself and my clients. How do we navigate that? Well, let's say we get through this next while, which we absolutely are. If we look back at this 2 months, will you have hoped to exercise more or work out more?
Right.
I don't think any of us would say that.
I find myself exercising more, but it's honestly because I'm needing to move energy.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's coming from a completely different place than like I've I have a little rebounder that I go jump
Oh,
on,
I
and
love that.
yeah, it's so fun. I feel like I'm 5 years old again. I do that, and I've been still, lifting weights or doing body weight workouts and walking, and it's just really, gosh, I have felt the need more than ever to just move energy, and it's just interesting the ways in which, or the what is inspiring me right now. Yes, there's definitely pieces in there of like, oh, I'm eating more, and
Yeah.
I need to go work out. That's so in there, but I really am tapping into the other piece of like, wow, I have a lot of energy in my body. A lot of us are anxious right now. I know that moving is such an important piece. Um, but I do challenge everyone to look at what's driving you, and honoring the fact, like I said, for myself, like I totally honor and understand that there's that other voice in my head that's like, you're eating the rice. You need to go work out. Um, but I'm trying to feed the other piece of like really going to work out when it's coming from a place of inspiration and not beating myself up.
Yeah. So what I really hear there, and it's something that I feel like I've been trying to work on, um, and encourage as well, is about like the listening to yourself. So it sounds like
Mm,
you're actually like, what is coming up from my body? What does it need? Why does it need that?
mm,
So using like the curiosity, like every sentence ending with a question mark. Like,
I
huh,
like that.
what's that about?
Oh, I like that a lot.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna
So
start
yeah,
using that. I'm like, I think I'm doing that, but now like with awareness around it, I'm gonna start doing that. I like
yeah.
it. What are just a couple of things, like main things that people can take away from this today on, when we're going through comparison, or when we're going through when we have this voice that enters our head and tries to start beating ourselves up? Like, what are the first, like maybe one or two steps that we can kind of break that cycle in the moment?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think can be really helpful, because a lot of us have a hard time listening. I know myself, listening to like what does that sound like? What does our body
Hmm.
need? Um, but like an inquiry, okay? What is the kindest thing I can do for my body? And in that moment, it might be rice, it might be a nap, it might be moving, it might not be.
Hmm.
But actually starting that conversation with yourself probably is one of the most helpful steps to take. I think another, so that would be just like even just that question alone. Um, I think the other step that can be really interesting is, if the self judgment comes up, can we switch it to self acceptance? So self acceptance isn't that resignation that
Hmm.
um, we just give up, but it might be a little bit easier to navigate than self love, which is something I think we're all trying
Mm,
to move towards. But
hmm.
self love can feel really threatening. And so if that yes for now is,
Ooh, can you explain that?
yeah, so I know I can only use it in the framework of my own
Yes, please.
experience. But when people told me to love my body, um, that felt far too vulnerable. It felt far too confronting, right? How am
Mm,
I supposed to shift from a place of hate into a place of love?
hmm.
Um, but by working with acceptance, it allows it allows one to start to slowly reframe what that relationship might look like, so
Mm,
that love potentially could develop. So I'm not going to look in the mirror and tell myself a lie. I'm not going to tell
right,
myself that I love myself,
right.
but I'm going to say, here I am. This is me. It sounds a little bit different from hate. It sounds a little bit different from love,
Oh,
but I'm,
I got chills.
yeah, but I'm totally okay with being in the middle for now.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. So acceptance, yes. And for those of us, I've always said that one of the toughest questions I ever asked myself was, what do you need? Because so many of us are focused on others' needs and desires and wants, and it's so difficult. When we finally turn that question on ourselves, we're like, what? Wait, what? No one's ever asked me that. I've never
Amen.
asked me that.
Yeah.
Um, how do you if someone's asking themselves that question for the first time, how do you navigate that situation?
Yeah, so like if they're confused with the answer or
Yeah, like I mean, I know for myself, when I first started asking myself that question, it would something would instantly pop up, and I would think that's too simple, or that's stupid, or whatever it would come around, because I wasn't. We go back to this piece of trusting our own intuition. I mean, I know how I do this for myself. I just wanted to see like um what your thoughts were on this for someone, because I think that the easiest thing, or the first thing that comes up for so many of us, is to just completely um the first thing that comes up, we think, oh, that can't be it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We go into the
Yes.
cognitive brain.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, our body couldn't be telling us that, right?
Right.
But it is, and
Okay.
I say go with it. Go try it. If it proves otherwise, then well, you know that
That
wasn't the
doesn't
case,
work.
and so inquire in a different way.
Okay.
And
Very
so I
good.
think, like, I love that you brought that up because I think we do have this tendency to overcomplicate it and think, well, what does that mean? And maybe the best advice that I have is go into your body and say, ooh, like what is that sensation about, and what is that part trying to say?
Mm. Oh, yes. Yes, I love that. I thought we might take a couple of questions from people, if you don't mind.
Beautiful,
Um,
yeah, I love that. I love that.
Guys, now that we're opening up for questions, shoot some off if you would like. If you have anything to ask Kate.
And thank you for sharing your experience in body image. I mean, I think it's part of our human condition, but I can only appreciate, yeah, being in this position to be able to share it. It can reach so many.
Yeah, I find that it's so healing for me to know that I'm not alone. Because, gosh, have I felt it? We all feel it. We all feel like we're in our own little world. And I think what we're seeing now more than ever is that we are not, we are not, we are not. We are also connected. So, what makes you feel safe?
Mm, I love that question. Um, I'd love to answer, and then I'd love to hear your.
Yeah.
I'm pointing to you up here. I'm not sure if you're. I think
Yes,
you're above there.
you're there.
It's like the Brady Bunch.
Totally.
Um, there's a few little actual exercises that I think are helpful to make you feel safe. I think safety is found and cultivated in every single moment. It's not just a guarantee. So it's about how you interact with your environment. But even just placing a hand on my body, on my heart, and just saying, you got this. I got you, right?
Yes.
Ensuring our own self-safety as opposed to looking outside of ourselves.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, I agree with you on that. So resilient. We don't give ourselves enough credit for, like, when you say, for so long when I used to put my hand on myself and tell myself I've got this, I didn't believe myself.
Mm-hmm.
But and gosh, I've been through so much. But now man, I totally know that I do have it. It might not feel like it in that moment, but I definitely do. And you're right, moment to moment. So what I've been doing, and my wonderful husband, I had like a whole crying panic attack yesterday, and he's so sweet. He picked me up off the floor, and he brought me outside, and he's like, look around, this moment, in this moment you're safe, and this moment is okay. And I love that he just used all my medicine on me at that moment, because I totally shared with him, like, about being in this moment I'm safe, in this moment I'm safe. And I'm like, oh, it's so amazing, thank you for reminding me of that. So I think, um, for me, really reminding ourselves, in this very moment I am safe,
Yeah.
and like looking around and getting acquainted, our senses, all of our senses, turn those on, and really being mindful of this very moment.
Yeah. I love that. Because that kind of actually brings it back to that present moment, which is like first rule of thumb in mindfulness and meditation is like in each present moment, um, there is nothing wrong. It,
Hmm.
it only is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything is until we give it meaning, right? Like it just is.
Any other questions here that
Yes.
feel aligned?
Let's see. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that our vulnerability is helping you. Um, oh, how do you know when you've arrived at
Mm.
self-acceptance? Whew, that's so rough. That's a deep one. I'm not even sure. I don't know how to answer that one.
I I don't know. You're not asking the right person. I
Right.
I'm not there. It's a journey.
It is a journey, and I don't know if we ever fully arrive. I mean, who
Hmm.
knows? I know when I when I find something that used to trigger me and I can find some space around it and it's not as triggering, or all of a sudden I find myself really um, the reframes that we talk about, like all of a sudden the first thing I think of is more of the reframe than it is um, the negative thought. To me, that's when I know there's a piece of me I have come home to. I've
Mm.
accepted more than I used to, and I think it's once again going back to moment to moment. Um, it is moment to moment acceptance, and it's such a journey that we arrive at little moments, and they all add
It's,
up to one big thing.
yes, yes, and you know what? That could not have been said more perfectly because we also need to take those moments and celebrate them and acknowledge them. Oftentimes we're like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm there. Now
Mhm.
what? Now what?
Yes.
Um, but it's all those little moments. It's that like looking at ourselves in the mirror, saying this is me, and then one day being like, this is me.
Mhm. I love
This is
that.
me, right?
Yeah, with a smile.
Yeah.
Um, Someone just asked, why do people think that they're crazy when they talk about spirituality and meditation? And I find this really interesting. I would love to just challenge that thought a bit, because what I have noticed with myself is I think I'm crazy by talking about spirituality and meditation. Um, I feel like, I mean, I say this to my husband all the time. I'll start to like spit off on something that's a little bit out there, and I just look at him and I go, I'm not crazy. He's like, I don't think you're crazy. I'm like, yes, you do. He's like, no, no, I really don't. And then I've said it enough where I realize I'm like, oh, I think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
It's the judgment,
Yeah. And you
internal
know,
judgment.
it's again like that. If we're re-examining our values, I think if we're comparing to sort of what we grew up with, perhaps,
Hmm.
and what we've been influenced by, being talking about meditation may be like speaking a different language.
Hmm. Very much
Um,
so.
I think it's becoming we're becoming more and more fluent in that language. Um, I think about my nieces who, you know, I think one of them is six now, and she's holding,
Mm.
gratitude circles
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, loving
That's so
kindness
cool.
meditations. And it
I
would
love
never
that.
occur to her that that's unusual or weird because that's how she's been raised.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're navigating some polarizing times where it feels like either you're there or you're here. You're not crazy for talking about meditation or
Not at all.
spirituality. You're voicing your authenticity and your truth, and maybe
No,
that will impact someone else.
yeah, and totally. And I think, really sitting in our truth and knowing our own experiences, and um, when we speak from those places, when we've had those experiences, and really embody that and feel it, like um, I think it's beautiful when people can speak with conviction and passion about spirituality and their experiences and any experience. I mean, I think it's really what we're seeing right now is we're seeing how many, gosh, we're seeing how all connected we are, but also how separate we can be when it comes to our perception of things, and um, really honoring, one of my challenges, as as I've started exploring spirituality and opening up in different opening up my consciousness, has been to not make anyone else wrong. And and in their experience. And even though I'm like, oh, please come here with me. I would really love to,
Mm-hmm.
like, for you to have this experience. Um, Everyone's in their own time, and no one's wrong in their timing. But I think, coming back to that self-worth piece and owning our own experiences and knowing that, like, they're valid, even if they're only ours. That no one else has to experience the same things that we experience. Our own experience is just as valid as the next person's.
And how do you find safety? By doing just that.
Yeah, totally, totally. Um, Thank you guys for your questions. I would love for you to just take us through a little meditation.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Let's do a bite-sized meditation in honor of beginners and experts out there. So
Yes.
if you're new to this, just try and find a comfortable position. We don't need to sit in a funny way, just allowing our body to do what it needs to do. And if it feels comfortable enough, to invite our eyes to close. If it feels better to have them open, you can find a soft gaze out in front. And notice that things will come up and things will leave. And that too is the nature of our mind and our practice. You're not doing this wrong. And starting with listening outside of our bodies to the sounds that surround us. Welcoming those sounds as if they were our friends and not our distractions. And listening now with our inner ears. To the beat of our heart, if we can hear or feel that, or how our breath moves. No need to change the breath. And can we invite some softness into our body, our jaw, our shoulders, maybe even our stomach, allowing that too to soften. Noticing if any judgment comes up there, our belly's soft. And return to the sensation. And noticing any other areas of our body that may be holding tension, holding stories. Our hips, our arms, our thighs. Noticing too what those feel like. And staying with the sensations in the body. Taking a few breaths from that honest space. If only for this moment can we offer ourselves kindness. If only for this moment may we offer ourselves kindness. And coming back to the sounds in our outer field of awareness. And noticing the quality of the breath. The softness of the belly. As we bring our presence back into the space, may I offer you these words. I do not at all understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are, but does not leave us where it found us. And when it feels comfortable, coming back to your senses, your fingers, your toes, opening your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. I love if only for this moment.
If only for this moment. And maybe that's a mantra going into the rest of your day that not only gives you that permission, but maybe reminds you of a time where you felt like you were sitting grounded and in your body again.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so, so much. I know this has helped so many people. I trust that it did.
You have helped so many people. Thank you for using your voice,
Thank
beautiful
you.
heart and spirit. I love you so much.
I love you too. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Everyone have a wonderful day. We'll see you again. Bye, love. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.